Give people the exact steps to make a good item and they will do just that. Teach someone about the most important feature of Atelier Ryza 2 and they will create the best of items whenever they need them with the greatest of joy. Mahatma Gandhi. He is right, you know. I mean, if you pick up a game about alchemy but don't really understand it, you're not going to enjoy it as much. So that is the mission of this video. I want to give you all the information you need with an easy explanation and examples so you can get out there and become the world's best alchemist. I will start off with the basics and then go into the different systems one by one. Because of this, I advise to watch the video in the order that it's created, but if you are looking for very specific information or just want a quick refresher, I have added timestamps too. One last thing before we start, in the coming days I'll be making some more content on both Atelier Ryza 2 and other upcoming Japanese games, so don't miss out and make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now without further ado, let's start. Alchemy at its very core is about combining materials to create something new. When you head over to the alchemy pod, you will see all recipes that you currently have unlocked. Once you open a recipe, you see a bunch of circles called material loops. The 3 thicker golden loops are the ones that need to be filled with materials first. From this point you can either choose to craft the item or to add more materials via the connected material loops to add extra effects and more quality. When it comes to selecting the right ingredients, you can pay attention to the traits that are on the material. By clicking Table of Contents, which is the big button on the PlayStation 4 controller, you can see what the trait of the material means. Which trait is good depends on what kind of item you are crafting. As you can see, I'm creating a battle item called Explosive Uni, and the traits on this red neutralizer won't do anything as they are grayed out. If I go down to the magic tome piece, however, you can see 3 traits that can be useful. When looking at the details of the traits, you can clearly see that these are traits made for battle items. So yeah, when crafting things and looking for traits, always keep in mind what kind of item the end result will be. If we go back to the red neutralizers that we saw earlier, you can see that these traits add a lot of stats, meaning that they are really good for things like armor and weapons. Atelier Ryza 1 had an alchemy level and separate recipes which were useful for unlocking new items, but in Atelier Ryza 2, this has fully been replaced with the alchemy skill tree. With this, you can unlock everything related to alchemy, such as recipes, gathering tools, access to higher quality items, unique item skills to use in battle, and most importantly, the other alchemy systems that I will discuss later in the video. In order to unlock new things in the skill tree, you will need SP points. These can be obtained in 3 apparent ways. One is by crafting many items with alchemy. The greater the items, the greater the SP gain will be. 2 is by heading to the cafe where Zafine is and going to the request board. All the requests you see here will reward you with money, but also with SP points. And 3, by fully completing rune investigations. Each ruin will have 5 areas of interest for which you can find evidence. By combining the evidence with the hints in your notebook, you can find out the truth, and by doing this for each area of interest, it will grant you either a special recipe or a large amount of SP points. SP points are pretty easy to get, but with how many things you can already unlock at the start, they can feel a little bit limited at that point. Because of this, I recommend to prioritize the following unlocks first. Okay, so right now we are looking at the skill tree. I actually loaded up an older save just so that the screen wouldn't be cluttered with a lot of things that we are not going to talk about. I just want to quickly go over the things that you should be unlocking first. So on the left we have the Explosive Uni and the bombs. Now both items are great items at the start to use in battle. The Explosive Uni will do physical damage and the the bomb will do fire damage, meaning that you will be able to complete those action orders. On top we have Grass Beans. Now this is the first kind of healing item that you can make. As seeing as you can now heal outside of battle as well, I also recommend to craft these as soon as you can, even if it's just one that you always have on hand. Now on the right you will see the neutralizers, and then of all colors. These are essential ingredients in a lot of recipes, so it's good to unlock those first. Plus they give you more options as you continue. So when we move further to the right you see the ingots. These are really needed to create a lot of weapons, and they are also a core ingredient in a lot of armors later on. Both cloth and honey are also used in a lot of recipes, so you might want to pick those up too. So moving on from these, we are going to the gathering tools. Now the first two that you can unlock are the grass sickle and the woodcutter's axe. Now these are very important because they allow you to get more different kinds of materials, which leads to more different kinds of items. So once you investigate a couple of more runes, you can also unlock the bug net and finally the bomb rod. Aside from these tools, you also see notes saying gathering rank +1. Now this gathering rank doesn't really say anything about the gathering tools, but more the gathering stuff that you do by simply pressing X. So think of the flowers in the first field where you don't have to use a tool, or the pile of rubble that you find on the floor. So moving on from that, we also have the staff rank, and the staff is I guess you can call the basic gathering tool that you have since the start. You pretty much just use your weapon to knock some materials out of a gathering zone. Now this staff rank increases the amount of stars on that staff. So if you unlock these two quickly, you can get access to a lot of new materials from the start. So yeah, other things to do in this area mainly is increasing the quality, which means that if you gather an item, it will be of a higher quality than it would usually be, which also leads to better types of traits. And other than that, yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward, but on the bottom hand of the skill tree, we see the different systems that we are talking about right now. So the first one to unlock, and this is the most important one in my opinion, is a recipe morph. Just like in Atelier Ryza 1, this will allow you to create entirely new items by following a certain path through the material loops. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so once you've unlocked that in the skill tree, all you need to do is go back to your alchemy pot and look at the different items that you can make. As you can see on the left side, next to the names of the items that I can create, you will see a little icon. It's like a little piece of paper. Sometimes it's red, which means that I don't currently have the specific item needed. And sometimes it's white, meaning that I do have the item and I can morph this ice bomb into something else. If I add the ingredient a rosin leaf, I can make a glass flower out of it. And if I add a glass flower, I can make a Clyde ice bomb out of it. Now let me demonstrate it by making a glass flower out of the ice bomb. So first up, seeing as there are two recipes, you need to know where it is located. This is the recipe we actually want, because as you can see, if I add a rosin leaf here, it will turn into a glass flower. And on the bottom is where the other recipe is, which is if I would have a glass flower, I could make a Clyde ice bomb. So we start off with the basics. We start to fill the golden material loops first. Just for the sake of this demonstration, it doesn't really matter what I add. And once I have filled these three, you will see that the other material loops will unlock. So this is the way we had to go. We'll just add something here. Just gonna sort by quality quickly. Add a little neutralizer. And the final ingredient to add is the rosin leaf. And with this you have unlocked a new recipe through Recipe Morph. Aside from simply unlocking new recipes, you can also use Recipe Morph later on to create higher quality items by starting from the bottom and working your way up. This is because once you recipe morph from one item into another, the amount of materials you can invest will be reset each time, while the item still saves both traits and the quality level. Now for both the story and side quests, you will end up needing a lot of different ingredients and items that you can only unlock through Recipe Morph. And seeing as Recipe Morph only shows the very next item in line, it may not always be clear which item it is that you need to use. Because of this, I recommend to always try to unlock as many recipes as you can every time you get your hands on some new materials. Not only will this give you more options for crafting, it will also give you a little bit of SP points so you can unlock even more things in the skill tree. Another thing you can unlock is called Gem Reduction. With this you can break down both materials and crafted items into gems. These gems are the currency that you will need for the other alchemy systems, and believe me, you will need a lot of these. You have a maximum storage of 5000 items, so it's also good to clear house now and then. The way I do this myself is by going to the alchemy pot, selecting gem reduction, and I first sort by quality and then by guide. This sorting method means that items are grouped by type first and foremost, while the lowest quality items can be found at the bottom of the selection. I then go through each item type and leave about 5 to 10 in case I need them later. This way of cleaning doesn't look at traits however, so if you are looking for certain traits or materials you may want to do it differently. But honestly, while playing through the story, it doesn't really matter as much because the best traits can only be found in the final areas anyway. Gem farming, or actually material farming, in Atelier Ryza 2 is very easy, even early on in the game. All you have to do is head out into the world and gather materials. The faster you can gather materials, the quicker you can get gems. So 2 tips I would give is to look for trees, as they can drop a lot of items at once, and make sure your gathering tools have an effect called gathering up, which will increase the amount of items you get per harvest. Aside from gems, you also see that I get a few little colored vials. These are used for essence purification, and I'm going to talk more about those later in this video. Next up we have a little something called item rebuilding. So do you remember when I talked about being able to put a limited number of materials into an item? Well, this kind of helps out with that, to a certain extent that is. With item rebuilding you can use gems to continue going through the material loops of an item that was already created. Aside from the amount of required gems, you are only limited by the item rebuild level, but this cap can be increased by unlocking these extra nodes in the alchemy skill tree. Now this system is really helpful because some higher level items can require a lot of materials to unlock the other material loops. High level materials usually cover these themselves, but they can only really be obtained later in the game. So when starting out, this can be a great way to even unlock the harder to reach effects in the material loops for an item. Now duplication is the system that, as the name implies, allows you to duplicate an item. The only thing you need to pay is an amount of gems based on how good the item is. This will make alchemy a lot easier for you. For instance, the different steel bars are required for pretty much all weapons. So if you want to make a weapon for all characters, you will need a lot of them. So let's say you use the very best materials that you currently have in order to make amazing steel bars. Then you use the item rebuilding to make them even better, and you are left with an insanely strong item. But you only have enough for one weapon. Now by using duplication you can simply copy this insanely strong item as many times as you want, as long as you have enough gems. Then afterwards you can continue crafting all the different weapons with these steel bars. Aside from steel bars, one of the best early uses for item duplication is to use them for usable items and armor, as these are the things that can be shared amongst all playable characters. If you watch my combat guide, you know that I recommend equipping each character with 1 physical damage item, such as an explosive uni, 2 healing items, such as grass beans or dry biscuits, and 1 elemental damage item such as bombs or ice bombs. Once you have unlocked duplication, all you have to do is make 1 of these and then you can make copies for all the other characters. So, as mentioned during the part about gem reduction, not only do you get gems, you also get little colored vials called mists. Aside from gem reduction, you can also get these vials as a reward from battles. Once you have enough of them, you can purify them into essences, and these are the things that you can use in alchemy. Now what do they do and why do you want to use them? They simply have 2 functions. Function 1 is that you can change the element of a material loop so that it can resonate with different types of materials. This can be very useful in situations where, let's say you have fire materials that increase the material loop level by 1 and ice materials that increase the material loop by 4. This means that to get to level 4 on this material loop you would need 4 different fire items, whereas if you can change the element to ice you will only need 1. So in other words, by changing the element you can use less materials to get a higher effect. Now function 2 is by adding an essence of the very same element that the material loop currently is, you can increase the possible gain of the material loop. This is what I commonly use these items for, and I only really apply it to the effects of the item that I'm creating. So as you can see on the screen right now, if you have this effect, by adding an essence, an extra row appears that I can fill to get a better version of this effect. This is actually how you can create gathering tools that can get the highest quality of items. Now the skill tree has an additional node which you can unlock called Light Mist, which is pretty much an advanced version of the regular elemental mist. Now this light mist can be used to make 3 different special essences that can have a major impact on the whole creation process of the item. Alright, so let me show you these very special essences. The first one we have is called Aurora Essence, and this will increase the quality of all materials added to the material loops by 100%. This means that anything you add will just give you double the amount of quality than it would usually do. And while this sounds great, it's not really that hard to get the max amount of quality that you can currently have, whether it's through recipe morph or item rebuilding, so I would refrain from using this one, to be honest. Now the other one, Aether Essence, this increases the element value of all materials added to material loops by 100%. Now this one is great, because this means that if you were to add an item that adds like 2 fire element levels to a material loop, it will actually be 4. So this means that you will need even less materials to complete the full material loops. So this is one that I definitely recommend using. Now last up we have Celestial Essence, and this increases the number of material slots received when your recipe is altered by 1. This is great for when you are going to go through a lot of recipe morphs with an item, because once you morph a recipe once, you will get an extra quantity for that morph, and as you go to the second morph you will get another one. So this leaves you with a lot of materials that you can already put into the item when you reach the final stage of the item. Another system you can unlock is Evolution Link, and using this you can create insanely strong battle items. You see, each battle item has unique effects, and by using Evolution Links you can add one of these unique effects to another item that usually wouldn't be able to get it. So as you can imagine, there are a lot of combinations that you can make. Now in addition to effects, there are actually some combinations that will make the item result in an entirely new item. For instance, by what you see on screen right now, you see that I grab a bomb and I add a rose bomb to it, and this will result into an entirely new item called a Grand Bomb. So I really recommend to play around with this, as you can create some really fun stuff. Oh, and by the way, if you end up using this, make sure to do this before duplicating the battle item for other characters. And finally we get to the Blacksmith. So in Atelier Ryza 1 you could do something similar as Evolution Link, but specifically for weapons. This can still be done in Atelier Ryza 2, only this time around is not done through Alchemy but via Dennis the Blacksmith in town. All you have to do is bring your newly crafted weapon, armor or accessory there, and you can select up to 3 items to improve it further. Regular materials will just increase the stats, but by adding usable items you can carry over some very useful effects. By adding a bomb for instance, you can carry over the fire damage effect, which can be really useful on the weapon for Patricia or Tao, as both of them have fire based attacks. Again, there are a lot of combinations here, so make sure to find what works for you. My only tip would be to prioritize extra elemental damage for the characters that have elemental attacks. So wind and ice for Claudia, lightning for Lent, etc. And that's all I wanted to share with you all today. After playing the game for over 50 hours, the alchemy system has kind of become a second nature to me, so I hope my explanations were still clear enough and I didn't skip over some crucial information for you. If I did however, and you still have any questions, don't hesitate to leave it as a comment and I will get back to you as soon as possible. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a like, and on that note, I want to thank you all for watching, and until next time.